Welcome to Meet Me at the Wall. A podcast exploring author Anne Goodwin's time-traveling journey after discovering hundreds of letters written to her grandmother over a century ago. We visit the space where fact meets fiction, truth fosters imagination, and delve into the past while keeping an eye on how lessons from history affect us today and even tomorrow. Well, welcome back to Meet Me at the Wall here with Anne and Betsy.
Hello.
Hello.
Great. I've got a little surprise for you, too. My cousin, Lori, sent me a photo just randomly the other day. And let's see, what did she call it? She said, the early training years for your podcast. And then she sent me this photo of me. This is so funny photo.
This will go in the notes for sure.
This will go in the notes because it's me in my room growing up. I don't know how old I am here. What do you think? I'm like 12 or 14 or something like that. I've got this horrible sweater on, but I have taken my telescope. It's above my head, and I'm hanging a little microphone down from it like a boom, and I'm reading something into the microphone. Very profound, I'm
Who
sure.
knew? You did.
So I thought it was really fun.
That's awesome.
It's really just kind of cute.
And here you are, that same sort of format with the
only
mic
with the actual equipment.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, I don't remember that at all. I do not remember doing that.
But you were like a star in your own mind.
I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
That's hysterical.
Practicing for the future.
Practicing for, who knew? That's my,
And you're like reading your
knickknacks
notes?
in the back. I've got like notes or something out there, and I don't know if I'm singing. I don't know what I'm doing. I no idea. And that is a cheap mic. That is like that barely probably even works.
I don't know.
It's probably the wrong
pretty
kind of mic to
fancy,
even
and
be
so
doing
does
that.
Let's have to have a look here.
telescope.
I love the telescope
the
boom.
telescope as the boom.
Telescope boom
I
is
thought
is
you
the
were going to
bomb.
say that you had the telescope and you were pretending it was a mic. But no. What the heck are you reading? It looks almost like a cover of a book. Or do you,
Possible. I don't know.
You just don't know what you're reading?
I don't remember.
It looks like a favorite something.
It does. It does.
Maybe you'd written a poem.
Perhaps. I may have written a few. I mean, there's a cross stitch in the background that I did. Picture of myself as a Cub Scout.
You cross.
And my little thing of knickknacks. It's a little turtle saying or something.
Did you share your cross stitch with Tracy?
No, I have not.
She hasn't seen this.
She's done the real thing. This is like a little kid's cross stitch.
But
she's done like a piece of art.
She's got to know what you know.
Anyway.
She's going to be on the show, isn't she, your cousin?
Lori is going to be on the show coming up very soon. So we're going to wrangle her in here, and we get to hear a couple of things from her, but I'll talk about that then.
We look forward to that.
Cool. So other fun we're going to have today. Here we are, we're traveling through the 1930s and ultimately the 40s, and we've talked about Titusville so often. It's such a central element of Florence and Ben's life. And you two were there, visited. And
We had a great time.
You did, and when you were there, you met
Barry Cressman.
Barry Cressman. So tell us a little bit about Barry Cressman, and let's get him on the phone then.
All right. So Barry Cressman is a Titusville resident of many years. I think he arrived there in the late 60s as a pastor for the Presbyterian Church. And he is one of the few people left on this earth who was friends with both my grandparents.
I love that.
And he will help us understand Titusville better because there's no better historian than he as far as going back in time and understanding all the nuances of Titusville. Plus, he's going to be able to share with us firsthand experience of what life was like living across the alley from Ben and Fleur.
Oh, I love it.
So I look forward to reconnecting with Barry.
We had such a nice visit with Barry and his wife, Lynn. Barry was a great tour guide, and he and Lynn were great hosts. We had a lovely lunch at their home, and she prepared the most delicious ever homemade tomato soup from tomatoes from her garden. I remember it well.
Oh, very well. Very well. I think there was some cake involved too.
Yes, absolutely.
So I look forward for us to have a chat with Barry, and he's going to be a fountain of information. We can just guarantee that.
Sounds good. As long as you don't convert our cookie addiction into a cake addiction. I don't know that I have time to bake cakes every time we record, but
I don't see a cookie here, Doug.
Well, they're downstairs. All right, let's get Barry on the line here.
I'll give it a try.
Hello.
Hey, Barry, this is Ann.
And who else is there with you?
Our friend Betsy, who traveled to Titusville with us, our third host.
Okay.
And Doug Martinet is here, Barry. Very nice to meet you by phone.
Okay, Doug, nice to meet you too.
We were just talking, Betsy and I, trying to remember, we feel like it was 3 years ago, right about now, that we had our visit. So we're happy that we get to share a moment with you talking about Titusville and the Craffords. And in our season 1 and a little bit of upcoming season 2, we've mentioned about Titusville and the boom and the bust, the boom for some and bust for others. And we want to look at Titusville today, maybe from the bust to where it got to in the 30s and 40s to where you find it today.
Yeah, I'm actually quite prepared to talk about Titusville during the 30s and 40s. My one great recollection from the many times I was together with your grandparents, I'm talking about Benny and Flo Crafford. I remember Benny talking about how your grandmother had gone off to Manhattan to do shopping towards the end of October 1929. And we all know what happened towards the end of October 1929. The market tumbled, and then it tumbled some more, and people panicked. So meanwhile, your dear grandmother had been shopping. I'm not sure what shops she visited, but I assume that at the top of the list would have been places like Saks, Von Witt-Teller, which no longer exists, and no doubt Bergdorf Goodman. So I remember Benny talking about how Flo had been off shopping and was totally oblivious to what was taking place in downtown Manhattan that day, namely tremendous deterioration in stock values. So they telephoned each other that evening. I don't know whether it was your grandmother who initiated the call or your granddad. And she's probably staying at some lovely place like the Plaza or the Ritz, whatever, St. Regis, I mean. And Benny said, so what have you been doing? And your grandmother said, well, I've been shopping. She wouldn't have put it this way, but shopping up a store. I bought this, I bought that. And my recollection is your granddad said, Flo, darling, you have to go back to those stores and return it all tomorrow. Aren't you aware of what is happening to the economy?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the favorite stories of my grandmother's. And in season 1, I write a little sketch about that. And it was return the coat, return the coat.
And now we have even more confirmation of the facts from Barry, who's right there.
Right,
I love it.
Right. That one has been fact-checked.
Well, Titusville, in terms of what had been its major industry, had to some degree already turned from oil. Originally, the big industry in Titusville was timbering, and by the late 1920s into the 30s, timbering took prominence again, and steel, and there was gas. Now, your family, of course, was very much involved with the latter, with oil and gas. And it actually began, somewhere around 1926, 27, when oil fields began to open in Oklahoma and then in West Texas. So the oil business had already begun to suffer a decline in terms of the price of a barrel of oil before the crash. But the crash was absolutely catastrophic. There was a glut of both oil and gas on the market. And so the price, as I recall, declined from, probably 1929. It would have been maybe close to $2 a barrel, declined to maybe 10 to 13 cents per barrel during the depths of the Depression. I'm talking about 1932, 33, 34. And of course, that significantly hit the local economy. I'm not sure to what degree it hit the Kraffert family. I know my recollection, you can correct me here, of course, is that it impacted the independents quite severely. And so the Westgate family would have been impacted in a major and very negative way. The then pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, Dr. Albert Caldwell, left some notes behind for people like me to read. And among other things, he talks about how during that period of time, probably under the WPA established under the Roosevelt administration, groups of men who were unemployed were hired. The streets were brick in that day. And Dr. Caldwell writes about how they would watch as workers came in and took up the bricks and realigned them and put the bricks back down. And then a year later, took up the very same bricks, put them back. I mean, that was the nature of the kind of work that was available.
Sure.
To say there was a tremendous unemployment, but also under the umbrella of various works projects established during the Roosevelt administration. We got a new post office. Carter Field, which is our football field, has a lovely stone wall around it. That, at least in part, was maintained during the Great Depression by workers under the umbrella. I'm assuming WPA. I keep referring to that, but there were other organizations that also were providing work for the unemployed. I was about to talk about the banking crisis. One of the, prominent families in Titusville, and your grandparents would have been friends with the McKinneys. James Curtis McKinney, back in 1917, established the Titusville Trust Company. And when there was a run on the banks, and that would have taken place 31, 32, and that J.C. McKinney, who had founded the bank and prided himself on it being a very stable institution, personally went down into the lobby of the bank and personally distributed cash to people who came in and wanted to take money out of the bank. That's part of Titusville lore that I believe has been well established, that was accurate.
Barry?
Yeah.
Was it cash from his own pocket that he distributed?
That is a good question. And interesting, I remember hearing that discussed. To the best of my recollection, the answer is that nobody knows for sure whether it was or not. So whether it was out of his own pocket or he had been careful in terms of overseeing the bank's assets, that I can't answer for sure, Anne. I don't know.
But the bank survived.
The bank survived. Now, the bank then went through a series of acquisitions. It grew and expanded. By the time I came to town in 1969, it was no longer the Titusville Trust Company. It was a Pennsylvania Bank and Trust Company. I believe I'm correct that your granddad may have been on the board of the Second National Bank.
Yes, he was.
You know? I believe he was.
Yes.
And that bank, when I came to town in 1969, obviously that bank survived because that bank was still in operation, and it was still the Second National Bank.
You mentioned that you arrived to town in 1969. Can we talk a little bit about Ben and you call Benny and Flo, and I'll say Ben and Fleur. Benny and Flo and your first meeting. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Even though I was 25 when I came to town, I was fresh out of grad school. I'd come directly from Princeton to Titusville. I arrived, actually, I graduated in the morning. I was in Titusville by the evening, and I went to work the next day, which would have been roughly the 1st of June. Titusville was just an exceedingly social community in those days. And on almost every Friday or Saturday night, there would have been a cocktail party somewhere or other, or some event that involved a gathering of people at the then Titusville Country Club, of which your family was very much a part, and where, as you well know, your granddad won many awards. So it was a very social community, and because of my position as a minister of the largest church in town, I was often invited. I was single. I was not married at the time. I'd often be invited to those cocktail parties. So that's the circumstance under which I would meet people like Flo and Benny and the Sweeneys and the McKinneys, and yes, on and on and on, the Warners. And what did they want to talk about? Of course, I'd always be the youngest person there, and I was eager to hear what they had to say about Titusville. And the conversation would often drift to Titusville in the past. So I have become, because of my age, I'm 80, I've become the repository of firsthand information about who were the makers and shakers in Titusville, not just in the late 60s and into the 70s, but way back into the 30s and the 40s, because they'd be talking about their parents and their grandparents and just what was going on in Titusville years before. And I remember thinking Titusville is a very lovely, prosperous community in the late 60s, early 70s, and most certainly was into the 80s. They'd be saying to me things like, if only you had been here when. And when they said when, they didn't mean the 1930s, and they didn't mean during the oil boom times either. They meant during the 1940s when Titusville boomed again because of the steel industry.
Sure.
But my first meeting with your mom, I've shared this with you, and if you don't mind, I'll share it again.
Please do.
It was a party. By that time, I was married, and Lynn and I were living across the alley from your grandparents, and we would encounter them with regularity. And so we were invited to a cocktail party, and your mother was there. And I encountered your mom, and I'll never forget it. It's one of those introductions you don't forget. I can remember word for word what she said. She stuck out her hand to shake my hand, to greet me, and she said, "Hello, I am Nancy Kraffert Russo, middle-aged, middle-class, and menopausal." Well, that was the beginning of our friendship, and basically my friendship with you and with your dad, your mom. As you may remember, I delivered the eulogy on the occasion of Flo's passing. Even though the funeral was in the Episcopal Church, the family asked if I would do a eulogy.
If you were to have a singular description of Flo, what words come to mind?
Flo had this delightful way of coming across as, for want of a better term, a ditzy dame. Now, she absolutely was not. She was a bright, capable, well-educated woman. But I think she enjoyed playing that role on occasion. And a story that you've heard us tell before is we were invited by John Henney out to dinner. By that time, Benny had passed away, and we were to eat out at the country club. And so Linda and I were still in the apartment, and so we walked over and we're chatting with Flo at the front of the house, waiting for John to pick us up. And he said, "Oh, I wonder if John will come for us in his corset." Now, John had a Corvette, and of course he wouldn't have come in the Corvette because only two people could sit in the Corvette. Yeah. But whenever we were with Flo, we always had a good time. She had a delightful sense of humor. We always had a good time.
I'm just curious about the population of Titusville, and has that grown much over the decades?
Well, again, I was about to get into the 40s. In the 1940s, Titusville absolutely boomed. And as I mentioned earlier, when those folks who would say to me, "Oh, you should have been here when Titusville was at its peak," they were talking about the 1940s. And not just the 1940s, they were talking about Titusville into the 1950s. When Cyclops Steel was booming, they were talking about that period of time when the plastics industry was coming to town. Those industries were absolutely booming, and so the downtown area would have been full of lovely, pleasant shops. Yeah, things boomed. The war brought there was some renewal of the oil industry. My wife's grandparents had an oil business, the Johnson Brothers Oil Company, and it was booming in the 40s into the 50s. So there was this great, so to speak, renaissance and the diversification of industry. I mentioned timber earlier. So, just kind of jumping from that till today, I would say hit the skids sometime in the early to mid 90s. And since that time, there has been a resurgence. There have been the old Cyclops property was taken over by the Titusville Redevelopment Authority. A lot of smaller industries have sprung up on that property. And Titusville is probably in better shape than it was. I remember people were saying this is the end for Titusville about 1992, 94, 95. Mainline churches like the Lutheran Church or the United Church of Christ, they were closing down. A couple of them merged with the Presbyterian Church. But yeah, I would say that Titusville is still a very pleasant place to live. And what has happened is it's become known as a tourist mecca for hiking, for fishing. We have all these wonderful trails and freshwater streams and people who are into camping, fishing, hiking, running, boating, all those things. And so tourism has now become among our chief industries.
I would just like to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed my visit to Titusville with Anne, and you were the perfect host and tour guide and a wonderful wealth of information during our time there. And Titusville is a very lovely town.
Thank you. I enjoyed your visit as well. And I look forward to your coming back sometime.
Yes, we were there. We actually got to attend the Heritage Days celebration, which must be coming up soon, perhaps.
Yeah, right.
And that was great fun. I found being there that Titusville is alive and well, and I was happy to see that. We live in a city that has the same sort of ups and downs, and a lot of small industry now have come in, incubator industries, and we're thriving, and it's interesting.
I look forward to talking again.
Thank you, Barry.
It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was fun, and what a wealth of information. I mean, for someone who's not a trained historian, what a good memory and wealth of information.
Yes, he was a phenomenal host for us to learn and feel everything Titusville and his recollection and all that he has assumed. And I love that the reason why he has all this information is because he was a cocktail party guest.
Yeah, right. As a new pastor. He was a pastor initially, right?
Yes, he spent his career in Titusville as the pastor of the Presbyterian Church.
And this is the church, of course, that Flo
had to leave.
Left because of the fundraising debacle.
Which is right next door to the Presbyterian Church. She moved to the Episcopal Church where her eulogy and funeral were taking place, and the Presbyterian pastor came over to do it, which is just such a fun full circle story.
Yeah. So Flo.
So Flo.
Yeah.
And his description of Florence, I'm sorry, but this further validates the voice that you've captured in your writings from the letters and the journal and what have you, and just from knowing your grandmother, further validates it. I mean, this is not a relative, and he described her I thought very interestingly.
Yes. I love the idea that he realized that she was extremely bright.
Yes.
And the persona that she enjoyed playing was a persona that she was playing. It was she wasn't missing a thing, really.
Definitely.
That was fun.
It was fun. I want to go back.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and this town seemed to ride all these waves of large commodities, from gas and oil to steel and plastics even, he mentioned. And now it evolves through all of that. It goes through boom after boom after boom, kind of peters out. And now it's back, and it's really the tourist trade and outdoors and recreation. And I love that.
And maybe the reason for all of that beautiful environment for them to enjoy now is because of the loss of the industry. Because coal production, oil production, steel production, that creates environmental issues on a daily basis, and those aren't there anymore. So Titusville was bright and shiny when we were there.
Where did you stay there? Did you stay there somewhere?
Oh, that was awesome. We found a little hunting cabin right outside of town, literally on the same street that Barry and Lynn live on. And when I was mentioning it to Barry, we met them for dinner where we were staying, and he said, Well, that's your Aunt Fran Warner's cottage.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So you were literally.
And she was family by connection.
Yeah.
She was a beloved family friend. And we called her Aunt Fran Warner, and she was a Quaker. And the cottage was a men's hunting gathering spot. And I have never seen, Betsy, I'm sure you either, so many stuffed animals staring at us, eyes everywhere. We were kind of overwrought by all of the animal features.
You're not talking stuffed bears. You're talking,
Well,
maybe
was there a
stuffed
bear?
bears. But I mean, like, I'm talking
Unusual.
like a kid's stuffed bear. But yes,
No,
you're talking
No,
taxidermy.
Taxidermy on steroids cottage.
Oh, fun.
And yet cozy at the same time.
Yes, it was.
So it can happen. Okay.
It was cozy.
Not my thing either, but yes, I can see that.
But it was one of those wonderful, not happenstance or circumstance, like divine intervention that the place that I found actually was some place that my family spent a lot of time at, or my brothers did, and my grandfather, obviously.
What I want to be able to describe for our listeners is more about like the size of Titusville, which really is a small community. You think about these big industries being there, and could you say what the population of Titusville is?
I just looked up Titusville in here. I wanted to reorient myself to where are we here?
Western part.
Exactly. It's like
Northwestern.
It's Western Pennsylvania, and it is between everything, right? I mean, it's kind of like in its own little area. It says here population is 5,158 according to Apple Maps. So a little over 5,000 population today.
And I don't know what the history of the population is, but a mighty, mighty, mighty small town.
Yes.
For that kind of number.
And the birthplace of the oil industry
Right.
in this country.
I'm just looking here. Little population history nuggets from Wikipedia. Titusville grew from 250 residents to 10,000 almost overnight. And in 1866, it incorporated as a city. So we're talking back in the 1800s.
That's a big
it was
jump.
Twice as big as it is now back then. But if we look more in the circa that we're talking about, 1920, population of 8,400. I'm rounding just for ease. 1930, 8,000. 1940, 8,100. 1950, 8,900. So there's some of those booms that Barry was talking about. In 1960, 8,300. 1970, down to 7,300. It's kind of dwindled a little slowly from there, but not drastically. It's, less than half.
Maybe those numbers will tick the other way.
Yes, all these people listening to the podcast are going
Right.
to come flocking there, and they're going to fall in love and end up living there.
So if any of our listeners are interested, we highly recommend a visit to Titusville, Pennsylvania.
I love
and
it.
maybe find a cocktail party or two.
That's right. I'm sure those are still happening.
There's a college there too, right?
Yes.
So it's an interesting mix.
Nice. Cool.
Yes.
It was great to meet with Barry. We're still in the 30s here. We talked a lot about the 30s and other periods. But Anne, you've continued writing. And so it's time, I think, for you to read a couple of your sketches.
Let's go down the 1930s road.
Take it away, Anne.
Storm Cloud Coming, the Virginian Hotel, Lynchburg, Virginia, spring 1934. Florence slabs one last bite of butter on the corner of her croissant, forgoes the remaining dab of orange marmalade on her plate, and pops it in her mouth. Savoring the moment, she ponders the statement, "Everything is better with butter," and agrees wholeheartedly. She removes the hotel room service tray from her lap and picks up the newspaper for one last perusal before she arises from her nest. "Oh dear," she comments to herself, "there doesn't seem to be a bit of good news anywhere." The headlines of the day feature the man in Germany, Hitler, who is upsetting Europe's entire civic discourse and seems unfettered while spewing pure evil well beyond his country's limits. As she starts to refold the paper, she hears a slight tap at the door. "Flossie, darling, are you up and about?" Fleur opens the door and finds Shiny, Bird, Anne, and Kay standing, fully dressed, hats on their heads and purses in their hands. They see Fleur in her dressing gown, and Kay, smiling, starts to wave her hand. We'll go wait for you in the lobby, but get to stepping. I, for one, would like to see Sweetbriar while there's still daylight. Shiny hangs back as Kay, Bert, and Anne head towards the elevators. She eyes a breakfast hardwell on Fleur's tray and lets herself in. You don't mind, do you? She sits on the edge of the bed and reaches for the roll. What have you been doing all morning? Oh, Shiny, I just can hardly bear to get out of bed these days, with the world becoming such a mess. I don't know if FDR is the leader to get us out of all this. He certainly is starting a lot of programs and such which are unheard of. But if we look around us, as in the camps set up right outside the hotel doors, at everyone who have lost everything, we must do something, right? Okay, my pet, I agree we are in troubled times, but we are here to shore each other up, visit the place we hold dear, and see if we can have a little fun. Let's get you dressed. Later, after visiting all their favorite campus haunts, the women make their way to their special meeting place on the shores of the pond. As they settle on their blankets, Anne leans back, stares out at the water, and declares, I really don't think we can solve the world's problems here today, so let's share some happy news. I'll start. Bill and I are ready to jump on the parent bandwagon. Hopefully we'll have positive results soon. Bird responds, Oh, that's fabulous, Annie. We've been waiting for that news. Even though you'll spend less time on the courts and the courses, you'll find being a mother totally worth it. She continues, keeping in the lighter spirit, has anyone seen any plays, movies, or had a good read to brighten their days? The women launched into their lists, all agreeing the show Anything Goes was top-notch, and the movie It Happened One Night was getting rave reviews. Fleur chimes in, I thoroughly enjoyed reading Murder on the Orient Express, but got a little impatient with Fitzgerald's Tender as the Night. He certainly does not spotlight our best selves. Speaking of which, Shiny adds, isn't it marvelous to see our latest Sweetbriar grads getting excellent jobs in the most interesting fields? The Claw would be proud of these girls and the intelligent conversation we're enjoying here today. Well, responded Fleur, she might not be so pleased if she were around for what's about to happen. Girls, I know we cannot stop this world from spinning into an abyss, but we can do something always to give someone a boost. And for me, I chose Mr. Hughes, the silversmith from Titusville. Absolutely no one is buying sterling these days, so I thought, what can I do to be of service? At that point, she reaches in her bag and pulls out 5 small velvet pouches and distributes one to each of her friends, keeping one for herself. I thought these might come in handy in the days ahead, and Benj very nicely filled each one to the brim with something well-aged. The girls opened their pouches, each to find a lady-sized silver flask engraved with their initials on the side and the word sister on the other. Hopefully Mr. Hughes is sitting prettier these days. Let's christen these with a toast to dear Miss McClaws. May she spin in peace. Circle Broken. Waldorf Astoria, New York City, November 1935. Florence catches her breath as she enters the Waldorf Astoria's magnificent lobby. It never fails to amaze her, starting with the fabled lobby clock greeting her as it did in the original Waldorf, the Westgate family favorite before it closed in 1929. The cool sleekness of the brass and black themed interior, adorned with splashes of colorful mosaic and smooth marble finishes, instantly soothe her New York City jitters. She moves forward to the reception area, where the concierge welcomes her return and is pleased to discover her requested junior suite awaits her. She has just enough time to freshen up before greeting Shiny and Bird. She smiles with anticipation. An overnight with the girls is just what the doctor ordered in these tight-in-the-belt years, and she is pleased to offer accommodation to her friends. The girls have planned to meet at their usual spot, the terrace court, where the cocktails once again flow and the lively band guarantees to transport them. Florence arrives at the terrace, sits down, toes tapping as she peruses the afternoon tea menu. As the waiter approaches, she hands him the menu and declares, "We'll probably go straight to cocktails. Most likely 3 jitneys, but I'll wait for the others." As Florence keeps her eyes on the courtyard entrance, anticipating her friend's arrival, she sighs a bit, wishing that Kay and Anne could join them as well. Impending childbirth and infant babies keep them at home. Fleur, Shiny's, and Bird's children are fortunately old enough to be left to others' care for this precious 24 hours getaway. They are all on pins and needles at the moment, awaiting Annie's pending arrival. Shiny had written concern about the silence, and Fleur jokingly had responded, "She's probably still on the golf course beating her mother in the club championship again." Fleur picks up a pen from her clutch and takes out her little notebook. She's getting a little impatient for the party to begin and starts making her list of hopes for the respite. Shopping. A.L. Schwartz for a Shirley Temple doll for Nancy. More airplanes for Dickie. Peck and Peck Boutique for something snappy. Macy's, of course. And then perhaps a visit to the newly opened Hayden Planetarium, which is all the rage. She peruses the dinner menu and pre-selects in her mind delicacies she can only find in the city. Caviar, green turtle soup, braised sweetbreads, potato souffle, and 2 desserts because why not? Strawberry shortcake and their infamous chocolate cream puffs. And then is pleased to see that Cole Porter will be playing in the Peacock Alley bar later in the evening if they desire a nightcap. Florence startles as the maitre d' interrupts her reverie. "Excuse me, Mrs. Craffert? You have a phone call awaiting you in the lobby." Florence rises and wonders who could be trying to reach her so soon after her departure. She frets that perhaps something has gone awry with one of the children. She enters the lobby phone booth and informs the operator she's on the line. She says hello hesitantly as the call comes through and waits as there is a bit of a pause. "Oh, Flobell, Bert and I are not coming. We've just heard the worst news." Shiny lets out a deep sob and gasps. "We've lost Annie. She had her darling sweet baby girl 5 days ago, and now she is gone. Our Annie is dead."
Whoa. That is, now I see the foreshadowing of that a little bit from Storm Coming for many reasons, but especially for Anne. Yeah.
Truly tragic news.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have letters that referenced this at all?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Of course, my grandmother wrote to Anne's mother, and I have the response from Anne's mother about losing her daughter. Quite poignant.
Do you want to read that for us, Anne?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. December 1935, Anne Ford's senior note to Florence. December the 17th. My dear Florence, many thanks for your sweet letter of sympathy, and it is hard for me to see why Anne was taken. She has meant so much to me in my life in the past years, always so understanding and sympathetic. She always tried to make up for the loss I went through in my young life. Yes, she had everything to live for and was looking so much forward to the little arrival. She was so delighted it was a girl, and I think Bill was just as pleased as long as everything was well with both of the Anns. We had no warning there was anything wrong with Anne. She never had a sick day. Everything was perfectly normal. The afterbirth was adhered, had to be taken. Septic poisoning set in. If it had localized, she would have had a chance. But no, nature went awry. It's tragic. Little Anne is adorable, and everyone thinks her very much like her mother. Now weighs 11 pounds. I've been with Bill since Monday. We came down ahead of Bill as he wanted to be with us on the 25th as usual. A sad 25th for us. I shall return to Columbia last of January and remain until we can decide for little Annie's future and what is best for her. Poor Bill. He and Anne were so congenial. It is hard to have a heart broken up so suddenly. Please remember Anne's friends shall always have a warm welcome awaiting them in my home. I would love for you to know her daughter, and I do hope she will be like her mother. I'm sure Bill feels the same. Hoping to see you again at some future time. Always affectionately, Anne H. Ford. In our reaching out to the Girls on the Wall's descendants, I connected with Anne Ford's granddaughter, who'd be my peer. And she mentioned to me that something that her mother, who's baby Anne, remembering that every time she walked into her room, people would burst into tears.
Yeah, when she was a child and after this, yeah. Wow.
So what I don't know, and I wonder if we can ever find any reference to it, if the girls did make an effort to be a part of the Ford's lives post death of their friend.
Right.
Yes.
I would imagine, yes. I mean, just based on everything we've learned here about your grandmother and her friends.
The sisterhood.
The sisterhood. I would imagine, yes.
Yes. That is a tough loss.
Definitely. Well, before we wrap up today, I do want to go back to the first sketch, Storm Cloud Coming. And I've got a few questions, the first of which is a fact or fiction. It's time for fact or historical fiction. Or historical fiction. Or historical fiction. These flasks, is that a fact? Is that something you have your grandmother's flask that says sisters on it?
That's kind of interesting. So, I swim and think.
Yes, you definitely swim. I keep getting texts from you. I swam this morning and there's a picture of a written page.
Right. So I was swimming, picturing a reunion at Sweetbriar and what that looked like. And I remember there is a source letter for this and we'll find it.
Okay.
A mention of bourbon. That the girls had some bourbon, and someone mentioned who was bringing it or whatever, and I'll have to find that. So I thought about that. I thought, well, what would my grandmother do in order, to celebrate this reunion? And I thought, well, maybe she would buy everybody a flask from Tiffany's and bring a silver flask from Tiffany's. And then I realized, oh, no.
No,
It would not be a flask from Tiffany's. It would be a silver piece from Mr. Hughes, who was probably not doing very well at all in those days.
Yeah.
And that's my imagination speaking. But what was so interesting is that for the notes, I was looking up small silver flasks, and I found a picture of a silver flask from Tiffany's in a blue velvet pouch. So that was sort of a fun stumble upon.
Okay, so this is historical fiction. I mean, it is absolutely in period. All that is great, but it didn't necessarily happen the way you've described it.
No,
or
but
they
I
have.
know they had some bourbon.
They definitely had the bourbon part.
They had to drink it out of something.
Perfect. Well, there were a lot of highs and lows today, I have to say. I mean, it was great talking to Barry and learning about that history and really bringing Titusville up even to the present. That was awesome. And your sketches this week were really teeing up this tragic news. Bowdan.
Feeling a little emotionally
roller coastered.
I know. Exactly. It's I was really up, and it's amazing what remembering and learning about history can do.
Mm-hmm. Talking about it's amazing learning and hearing about history is, although the sketch is tragic because it's dealing with the loss of Anne, it was interesting for me to do some research on the Waldorf Astoria because I know that was a favorite family hotel. So I wanted to say that to Barry today, too. The Waldorf Astoria has just gone through its third major renovation and opened this summer. And that fabulous clock that greeted my grandmother is featured.
It's still there.
Still there.
That made the cut.
Yes. And it was fun because and we can put this in the notes, I ordered the Waldorf Astoria's 100 favorite cocktails historically. And so it's a little cocktail book. And I paged through it and I was thinking, well, what would the girls order? And came across a jitney. And so we'll put the recipe for a jitney on the notes. And this is the fun part of bringing ancestry to life is seeing and filling in those details that are there to grab.
And I'd like to experience what they experienced with the jitney.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should each have one. We can do non-alcohol, alcohol.
Forget the cookies. It's time. It's time to wrap up.
Time for a jitney.
Cookies and jitneys.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Looking forward to it.
It's always fun. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Meet Me at the Wall is hosted by Doug Martinet, Ann Goodwin, and Betsy Schmeeken. Music is written and performed by Alex Vance. This podcast is copyright by Pleasurable Pause Press. Thank you for listening, and we hope you tune in again next time.